Hi everybody, welcome to this session where we're going to be talking to Anand Mecheri about how to demystify digital twins. If I introduce myself first, I'm Claire Penny. I work in Invicara as the Director of Global Partnerships for the last 2 years, focusing on digital twins. And I'll hand over now to Anand, who will introduce himself.
Thank you, Claire. Great to meet you all. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Anand Mecheri. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Invicara. I've been in the smart buildings industry for about 25 plus years and last 8 years in the digital construction space. Look forward to sharing with you more today.
Thanks, Anand. So if we want to kick off this conversation, then I think a really good place to start, and it's really the title of this presentation, is the demystification or demystifying digital twins. For me, being embroiled and loving the whole space, it's a bit of a no-brainer. But for a lot of people, they're very confused, Anand, around what is actually a digital twin. And so could you walk us through exactly what a digital twin means?
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. That's not an unusual reaction, right? So either people are super excited about the term digital twin, or they are perplexed or frustrated, or they just don't want to hear it. There's a range of emotions involved when you talk about a digital twin. And there are good reasons for that. And let me try and articulate that as best as I can. I like to describe the term digital twin as something equivalent to the term asset. Okay, and as you all know, the term asset could mean many things. It could mean a physical asset, such as a building or a piece of equipment inside a building. It could be a vehicle. It could be anything physical, or it can be something financial. It could be goodwill. It could be cash. It could be receivables. It could be inventory. A whole range of different possibilities. So the term asset can mean just about anything. And imagine having a conversation where you're talking about, oh, I want an asset, or I'm able to provide an asset to you. We are experts in assets. So imagine that conversation where it's going to go. Obviously, it wouldn't go too far, right? The same thing applies to the term digital twin. It can mean so many things to so many people. So, for example, you could have digital twins in the context of many different industry segments or domains. It could be digital twins in the healthcare space. It could be digital twins in the manufacturing space or supply chain and logistics. It could also be in the domain of built environment. So this is the first level challenge. Digital twins can mean many different domains. And then when you talk about the built environment, more specifically, you could be talking about buildings, and within buildings, you could be talking about various types of buildings, airports and healthcare facilities and higher education or residences or commercial buildings, or could be any kind of building, or it could be infrastructure assets. It could be road networks, rail networks. It could be water infrastructure, energy infrastructure. So when you talk about digital twins in the built environment, we could be talking about a vast range of asset classes. And then if you within any of these asset classes, you would have different use cases. So the use cases in an airport are going to be much richer than what you're going to have in a residential building, right? But they're different, and they're different too. There may be some common adjacencies and overlaps, but they're going to be business-driven requirements that can be very different across these types of buildings. So that's the problem that we are working with. So the fact that the term can mean so many things tends to confuse the conversation and diminish the value that somebody can perceive out of that conversation. Does that help?
Yeah.
Help to clarify? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and really we need to now expand on. We've kind of set the problem statement here very well. So, if you could lead us through how we can alleviate this confusion, some steps that people can take to help them really understand and get to the bottom of what a digital twin is.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we as industry practitioners have a responsibility to demystify, as the title of this talk goes, demystify this term. And to do that, we need to sort of practice a few things. Firstly, we need to recognize that the digital twin is a ubiquitous term, and we talked about why it's a ubiquitous term. And this needs to be properly articulated to the industry, to the market, to the clients, so they understand what a digital twin really is. And as a client, if you are requiring a solution, you should be also in a position to articulate what you're looking for, the type of asset, your business model. If you're a developer or a investor or an owner or an occupier, you could have different business models that have very different expectations. So you should be able to articulate what exactly are the use cases in the context of your business model. The second is, there tends to be, and this is something I've observed in many, many conversations, when you start talking about digital twins, there's a preconceived notion about it in the minds of the prospect or even the minds of the other practitioners in the industry. And this comes from the expertise and experience they have, right? So everybody applies a lens from where they are seeing the world, and then it becomes difficult as well. So if we can keep ourselves open to recognizing that digital twins can mean many things, then I think the conversation gets better as well. The third thing is, we also have to recognize that digital twins can also be in the context of products that are fairly fixed. Products by definition mean somebody wrote a piece of software which has a certain structure or a data model. It has a certain set of workflows. It has a certain set of user experiences, and that's fairly rigid. So you can have a digital twin for a specific purpose that is very much a product. It's possible. But you could also have a digital twin that is highly composable, meaning you are able to compose a solution on a platform that can enable you or a client to create a solution that's fit for purpose, that's fitting a specific use case, a particular demand. And this could be across a wide range of possibilities. So let's talk about the built environment. You could be talking about use cases in planning, like in urban planning. It could be simulating urban livability. It could be, and that requires information around the demographics, the phasing of a development, the economic data, and so on. So you could be looking at simulations. It could be livability, travel times, so on and so forth. So you could be talking about planning. You could be talking about applications in design validation. You could be talking about applications in construction management and executive decision making during construction programs, or it could be around operations. So you could have a number of use cases within each of these stages. So in order to do that, you may have to look at digital twins not as a software product that you can purchase from somebody. It is designed for something specific, but you could also be looking at it as a platform on which we can compose these things. So having that flexibility is important to keep in mind, that you can virtually start from a clean sheet of paper and describe the landscape that you want to address and create those solutions. And to do that, one has to think about the concept of digital twins in two adjacent concepts. So one is the concept of twinning. So the twinning essentially means that you're creating a world model, whatever is your world, as a first step. The twinning process essentially creates the digital representation of that physical thing. But that is something that can be leveraged for multiple solutions. And that's something which we would call, or I would call, twin-enabled solutions. So the process of twinning is about creating a world model. And once you have the world model, the goal is to use that world model to drive multiple solutions across different use cases. Take operations. During operations of an asset, you may have so many different use cases, such as asset management or maintenance management or workplace management. It could be comfort and health and creating healthy buildings. It could be sustainability, net zero carbon. You may have so many different use cases, but obviously a digital twin is valuable in each of these contexts. Are we going to go build a twin for every one of these implementations? No. The logical way to do it is to create the world model twinned that world once and make it possible for that twin to be leveraged for various use cases. And we got to keep in mind that in this journey, as we are all on this journey, we will find that the digital twin enabled solutions are going to be touching operational business requirements. If it's a healthcare facility, how do I optimize patient care? What are the different drivers to optimize my utilization of my equipment? There could be so many different use cases that kind of intersect the physical world as well as the business and process information. So when we look at twinning as a separate concept from twin-enabled solutions, we suddenly clarify a lot of questions in people's minds as to how we can approach it. And lastly, we also have to recognize that twinning can be a distinct capability, right? And twin-enabled solutions could come from many different sources, like somebody who has expertise in business process management, or somebody's expertise in optimizing maintenance or sustainability or carbon. These capabilities could come from many different stakeholders. So whereas the process of twinning is engineering led. So you are talking about gathering information about what has been built, how is it performing, and representing it in a data model, either based on a standardized ontology or in a customized way. So the expertise can be different, and we could see the industry evolving where we have engineering companies or construction companies focusing on the area of twinning, and you could have several other stakeholders coming in and providing services leveraging that world model. So those are the, if I were to summarize it as concepts that needs to be communicated in order to alleviate this confusion, they will be the top 5 I would think of, Claire.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anand. Yeah, and a really good top 5 as well. Thank you. And as we're in the BIM Coordinators Summit, I guess we really need to bring this back now to the audience so that they can practically understand how BIM falls into digital twin and how that can be leveraged, from design construction into the operations phase, as you describe. If you could walk us through that, that'd be really useful, please.
Yes, absolutely. So let's start with the foundation, right? The foundation, it's a bit of a cliche, but we have to start with the end in mind. So and this is not dissimilar to the recommendations under the ISO 19650 information management framework. So it is all about knowing what are the outcomes you want to achieve, what the client wants to achieve. We can call it organizational information requirements from an ISO terminology point of view. So starting with that high level requirements for outcomes, we can then distill down the use cases. Just to say that, I want to have a sustainable building or a net zero carbon building, or I want to be able to reduce my maintenance costs or have a healthy building. That's not enough. That's a great starting point. That's your outcome. And from that outcome, you could then create the specific use cases to achieve that outcome. That then leads to defining your asset information requirements, meaning what are the assets I care about, or what are the objects I care about, right? The objects can be equipment, systems, spaces, people, whatever it may be. And once we know that, we can then establish what information about those objects do we need in order to deliver those use cases. And that is the basis of creating an asset information requirement. And this is really important because if you don't have this set up, our path to success is going to be very, very constrained, right? And it's also important that we don't need to know everything, right? It's about knowing what we know at this point to define that process of twinning. And then there are new use cases. They would be data extensions. So we shouldn't worry too much about, do I have to know everything about everything when I start a process? No. You just need to know your broad outcomes, and within those outcomes, what impact do those outcomes have on use cases and data requirements that must be known during the process of creating that world model. So once we have done that, we then get into the world of the BIM delivery process. In the BIM delivery process, as we all know, it's one thing to utilize BIM for coordination and production of construction documents. It's entirely another thing when you want to use BIM as a foundation for digital twins. The difference is data, right? If you want to use the models for creating digital twins, you've got to do a few things. Firstly, we've got to make sure that there is a very consistent classification strategy in those models. The classifications must meet the objectives as well. And I won't go into discussing classifications because it's one hell of a big topic. But I think all we need to really do is to recognize that classification is properly done. And once you have classified the models, you are now creating a model that is machine readable, not just for humans, but a machine can understand what is what in the model and understand it consistently. Then we can define the data parameters against those classes, right? So we know what data we need about a room or versus a pump or a diffuser or whatever it may be. So we are then able to ensure that every model in that project or the program has parameters that is consistently applied against those classes, right? And then when the data is produced, you're then able to, you need to validate. Validation is really critical from a quality point of view because we all know garbage in is garbage out. So if you don't make sure that the data is validated, we have a problem. So within the BIM process, there needs to be a conscious intervention, a very deliberate set of actions that result in classified and data complete and data validated models, which then is a fantastic resource for creating a digital twin. What happens thereafter is the ability then to take the models and extract the data and graphics from those models into an extensible, flexible, and even expressive data model, right? This is not a BIM authoring tool anymore. The BIM authoring tool has provided us a great way to extract objects, their relationships, the graphical representations, some of the data describing those objects that needs to be in the model. All of that then comes into a platform, a digital twin platform that allows you to create an object-centric, not a model-centric, but an object-centric representation. If you see this, if I can refer to the slide, the centerpiece here is really the objects you care about, the assets, the systems, the spaces, or people. And then you relate those objects to data associated with it. And this data could have come from the model, it could be coming from Excel sheets, could be coming from a manufacturer's database, it could be documents, and those objects may have a representation, a 3D representation or a 2D representation, or it could have a representation on a GIS map. So you could have all of these different pieces of information connected together and explained or expressed through what you would call a knowledge graph. A knowledge graph is essentially a representation of what is the asset and how is the relationships between all of those assets, all of the components within that asset. So that is an outcome you would achieve to create a digital manual, so to say, of an asset that is being developed. It can be done for a new asset or an existing asset, but as one would suspect, for an existing asset, you wouldn't even try to create a very granular definition of everything. It would be a little bit higher level to make it practical. And once you have done that, you can extend this asset twin, which is really static data sets, to what we would call a performance twin. The performance twin is a delta on the asset twin, which essentially integrates information from real-time systems, such as a building automation system or a building management system, a distributed control system, IoT sensors for air quality, occupancy, or it could be smart meters. So you bring this data together and represent it against those objects within that asset twin, and that then is your world model. So this world model is really what every construction project should be handing over. Right? As a client, as a developer, I think it would be an incredibly lost opportunity for the creating value in the future for your assets if you don't expect that outcome in every single development starting today. And it is also a great opportunity for industry practitioners to be handing over something like this. While industry, whether it's designers or construction companies, we are helping clients get phenomenally valuable assets today. What if those physical assets can also have a digital asset? And what if the handover is digital, as in this form? The benefit for the contractor, for example, would be a very elegant and efficient way to hand over the project, leaving a fantastic impression, and in fact, even stopping a whole bunch of RFIs coming well after the project is closed, making everybody's life easier. And for a client, this becomes the source of truth about their asset, whether it's for due diligence, for selling the asset, or for engaging with the prospective tenant, or for running the asset properly. So all of these different applications, whether we touched upon it, whether it is asset or maintenance management or carbon, net zero carbon implementation over the progressive days and months and years, or if it's about driving circularity and managing that circularity data, or driving a healthy building, any of these applications are really going to be benefiting from this twin that was delivered at handover, right? And those solutions can either be natively built on the platform on which you were delivered this twin or this world model, or they could be independent, off-the-shelf applications that can be interact with the twin and integrate with it. There are many possibilities in doing that. So that, in summary, Claire, is how I would explain the process of transforming BIM to a digital twin.
That's absolutely amazing, Anand. Thank you so much. I think it's brilliant that we've acknowledged that there is confusion out there in the marketplace, and I think you did a good job in explaining that, and then giving us ways that we can alleviate this confusion, giving 5 clear points around, how we can, as an industry, move forward to deploy digital twins. And then finally, I dare anybody in the audience to not be excited about this. The fact that we're already doing BIM, that we already have this information in the state, and how, just like social media has completely changed everybody's lives, and just like Google Maps, like nobody buys a map anymore, just like these technologies have helped us in our personal lives, I dare anybody not to be excited to look at this and hear you speak and really want to get involved with digital twin, because it's really is the future as far as I'm concerned. And I think now we have time for questions. Oh, sorry, Anand, do you want to say something?
No, spot on. I was brilliantly concluded, Claire. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we have time now for some questions, if anybody has any.